Hi, Dominique. Welcome to Ideology Podcast. I am the biggest fan. Honestly, your content got me through so much of the pandemic.
Oh, well, Safiya, it is an honor and a joy for me to be here with you. And you were so sweet and gracious to reach out. And I felt your excitement. It was palpable in your email. And I really wanted to be here for you and with you. And then when you popped up on my screen, there is this beautiful woman who obviously practices self-care and values herself. And I thought, she gets the message. So this will be a joyful conversation, I know.
Oh. I was thrilled that you wrote a book for us, which was out yesterday. Is that right?
Yeah, it came out April 5th.
April 5th. And you had the premiere yesterday? You had a
Yes. It's been sort of a whirlwind. You know, this is my first entree into book publishing, and I'm learning a lot, and there's so much that goes with it. A lot of the publicity. You know, here's Safiya, I will tell you this, the one upside of COVID is that everybody got accustomed to Zoom meetings and conversations and interviews. And so, you know, once upon a time to promote a book, you would have to travel to all different markets, travel to New York, or wherever you would get booked. You know, appear on a show for 2, 3, 4 minutes, your segment's done, and that's it. And then you're traveling to the next place. Well, now, just like we're doing, we connect via Zoom. And so I've had several podcasts. I was on Extra TV. I was on Victoria Osteen's Sirius XM radio show. An outlet in Arizona, one in Charleston. And so it's amazing. Just with the click of a link, you can get on and talk to people and talk to communities. And it's been really great in terms of getting the messaging out there and just talking about life makeover.
Yeah, because I know you have a lot of fans here in the UK. And yes, especially in London. We can't wait to have you here in person. But for now, we're going to take this and try and get as much out of you as possible.
It's all good. Just squeeze me.
Okay, so I was curious about you because you are a hard news journalist, right? You have 3 decades of working for KPRC, is it?
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
And you're an Emmy award-winning journalist. What was that transition like? What was it like to say goodbye to news?
Yeah, it was, I will tell you, the transition in terms of the content wasn't so hard for me. You know, being in the news business for 28 years, it's a long time. The news business itself has changed a lot over those years. And, you know, when you're talking about sort of the worst of society, the problems, what's not going right, and news is 95% negative with, you know, the occasional highlight story of what's good in humanity. And after a while, it gets to be enough. And I think, you know, with the presidential election, with going through COVID, with just all of the things, I think everybody just got tired and frustrated with the news. You know, the threshold was up to here. I had started my YouTube channel in 2014. And so that became this wonderful place for me to put out content that resonated with me, that was meaningful, and was a different way for me to connect with viewers, and specifically women and women of a certain age. And I was getting just tremendous feedback on that platform. It was like soul food for me. So that transition from news into YouTube full-time, into promoting the book, was really an easy one. Although I will tell you this, I was at my TV station the other day, on Monday, to promote the book on a TV show that they do called Houston Life. And walking back, I hadn't been there since October when I retired, but walking back in and seeing my friends again, and it was just such a hug. It was such a warm experience. And what I miss the most is the interaction. I miss my colleagues. I miss the fun that we had together. So that part is tough to be away from. The news itself, not so much.
Yeah. Well, I find the same way, actually. I was someone who wanted to go into hard news journalism.
Yes.
And I found myself constantly in the entertainment and the light side of it. But because I grew up, you know, admiring women like Christiane Amanpour and all these amazing journalists. One of my favorite movies was Michelle Pfeiffer's Up Close and Personal.
Yes.
So I just always wanted to be a journalist. And within a week, I realized, oh my God, I don't know if I can do this, because in every story, I just knew I couldn't distance myself, and I knew I'd be bringing it home and I'd just be thinking about it, and it would just eventually take such a toll. So I could see what you're saying about, that your YouTube content and connecting with women was almost invigorating for you and a soulful place, right?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. News is hard and heavy, and it is hard to sever that tie. I think the most important role of a journalist is to not only tell the story in a factual and balanced way, but it's about humanizing the victim. It's the human element in the story. And so you're going to have to feel some kind of a sense of connection to it in order to properly tell it. And then there's no way to remove that emotional tie. You are bringing some of it home with you, and it's a heavy weight to bear. And not everybody can do that and walk that walk. So I do understand your perspective completely.
I think there's so many layers to you. You're someone who was a single mother, and then how long were you a single parent before you met your husband and had a blended family?
Yes. So it actually happened pretty quickly. I met my husband, who had 5 children, literally the same year that my other marriage had ended. And so I was a single parent roughly for 2 years until we married and became a blended family. And so that was an interesting transition. I'm an only child. My son is an only child. And so making that blend happen and doing that, was a very carefully crafted scenario. At the time I was living in a high rise, and my boyfriend at the time, who I then married, also lived in the same high rise. And so it was a chance for us to get to know each other, but also our children to get to know each other and to watch how that was going to happen. And, we both agreed that if they didn't blend, if they didn't get along, or if there was no relationship forming or contention or whatnot, then the relationship didn't stand a chance. And so we were able to watch that blending happen. And I know that's not an easy thing or an easy setup for a lot of people, but I will say that the kids did blend very, very well together. And it's not to say that there weren't hiccups and bumps in the road. I mean, they were young at the time. Our youngest, they were 6, 10, and then 2 older ones. And so it was a lot. It was a big, big undertaking. But I think that there are smart ways to go about it. And I'd like to think that we invested the time to do that right.
I think that's why your book Life Makeover is something that I really want to get for myself. I have pre-ordered it, and I actually wish we'd had this conversation. I hope you'll come back after I've read the book fully. Yes. But the thing I wanted to most talk to you about is a lot of women feel like we had been raised thinking, it's you're a child, you get married, you have a career, possibly take a career break, and then, you become an empty nester. And it was supposed to be this linear thing that was supposed to happen. Yeah. But most of us are finding ourselves, with a failed marriage, having to restart a career, feeling like the careers we wanted, maybe careers weren't fulfilling, or you realize actually this isn't what I wanted to do. And life, there's no manual for life. What would you say to young women who are starting out with that same model?
Sure. I would say, Safiya, abolish the model. Life isn't linear. Mm-hmm. It's going to have twists and turns, and you've got to be open and expecting of that. I mean, I can certainly tell you that when I started out in life, the way that I saw it, was nowhere near the way that it turned out. I mean, there were certain things that came to fruition, but not in the way that I thought they would. I most certainly never thought I would be married twice and divorced twice. That was never a part of the plan. I had my sights set on working in New York. Staying in Houston full time was never part of the plan, but it turned out to be the wisest part of the plan because it gave me the best balance between having a career, growing in a career, and also being present as a mother. And that was very important to me. That was something I would not relinquish, was time with my son. And it just meant, honestly, really long days, because in the television news business, you know, I was on the morning show. So that meant getting up at 2:30 in the morning, being at the station by 4, but then I'd be able to get home by noon and I had the rest of the day. Or later, when I worked the evening shift, I didn't have to go into work until 3:30. So I could be home with my son all morning until he went to school and then work late at night. But it meant oftentimes, you know, being up for 15, 18 hours straight just to get it all done. But that balance was important to me. And so it's good to have goals. It's good to have plans. It's incredibly important to have dreams. But I think we have to realize is that we are not in control of all of those things. You know, I'm a woman of faith. And so I believe that it's important to do our part, but the rest we have to give up to God and realize that He has a plan and it's His way, and it's sometimes not our way. And until you kind of go through those trials and tribulations, do you then realize and understand why they were there? They were there to grow you. They were there to mature you. They were there to give you clarity and wisdom. And we need those. We need to go through the storm to better appreciate the sunshine. And so that's sort of the mindset that I've adopted. And it's, I think it's called grace, right? To have grace in every situation.
I completely agree with you, but sometimes it's harder to have grace, especially sometimes when you feel like, you know, people are deliberately wronging you. Some people are mean-spirited, deliberately so. And how do you maintain grace and be the bigger person when you feel wronged justifiably?
It happens all the time. You know, as a broadcast journalist, you get it, you deal with it. I've dealt with it since my mid-20s, and that's a long time to deal with harsh criticism. I'm 54, and especially with the, you know, the development of social media and new ways for people to reach you. You know, it used to be just email. Now people can comment on your posts or direct message you or whatever. So the onslaught just sort of comes from everywhere. And unfortunately, it's become a part of our culture to have what I call keyboard courage, for people to feel that they've got a platform and a voice for vitriol, hatred, and mean-spiritedness without care or concern of what those words can do or mean. I'm an adult. I can handle it. I can take it. I've learned to dismiss it. I've learned to delete. I have learned not to internalize it. I don't let somebody else's word define who I am. It's my word that I speak over me. It's God's word that is spoken over me, and not somebody else's word. And I think that if they're putting that out, I think to myself, my goodness, you know, the words that must have been spoken over them were pretty horrific, or are pretty horrific. Somebody's not lifting them or lifted them in the past. And so that's their way of feeling important. And it's sad. And we have to see it for what it is. We have to not let it penetrate. Unfortunately, you have to develop a bit of a shell to let it kind of bounce off of you. And I think it just becomes an acquired skill. Now, that's all good and fine. We're adults. My concern is for the younger generation and for our children, because I think they are exposed to this at such a young age when they don't have the mental wiring and the emotional makeup to properly handle and process that. And that gives me pause for concern, is how they internalize what other people say about them and let that define their persona, their character, and their belief system.
Right. I worry about the exact same thing too. Like you say, you know, they're not wired for it. They haven't developed their brain yet. They haven't gone through the painful spiritual lessons and all of that. And I feel also our children lack some of the same opportunities, especially if they grew up now around the pandemic, where they've been masking or, dealing with what they're dealing with.
Agreed. It's a very hard time to be a child. Very hard. It's not easy to have innocence anymore. And I think that's a shame. I really do.
Yeah. I think we'll all need to have better conversations about how we can pull together to protect young people, because I think the world is just not seemingly wanting to look out for them.
Right. And it's important that we have these conversations. It's important that parents are open and have this kind of dialogue with their children, and that their children feel comfortable in talking to them and sharing with them what they're exposed to, what they're seeing and hearing. And sometimes we don't want to know or see what they're seeing, but if you don't know, you can't be there to help. And as troubling or as disturbing as it may be, you've got to be in the game, or else you're lost, and you don't have that opportunity. And children will rely on other children for help, and what good of a guide is a 13-year-old for another 13-year-old?
Yeah,
that's not what they need.
In your book Life Makeover, you share personal stories about how you had to fight fear with faith. Yes. I also lean into faith when life gets challenging. I just think, you know what, all I can do is pray about it. Can you give us, can you talk to us a little bit about fear? Because I feel like fear has such a grip on us now. Everything that you see coming through the media, every conversations, everything is just around fear, whether it's COVID, whether it's, fear of inflation, scarcity, what will happen with food shortages. It just seems to be coming at us at a rapid pace.
Yes, I sort of define, fear into categories. I mean, there's real fear, the kind of fear of, a bear is chasing you in the woods and your instinct kicks in for survival. And then there's imagined fear. It's the what ifs. And I think what has happened, and in a way, a part of the reason why I got out of the media, and a big part of the reason why I don't consume the media, is that I don't want to buy into that notion of being afraid. Fear generates money in response. And so if you pull yourself away from that model, then you're not buying into what it is that you're being driven to do. And so I find that there is far less fear in my life. And it doesn't mean to live in a rabbit hole and not to be aware of certain things. You can be aware, but I think sometimes it's too much. And what can you do to change, what's happening in the political structure or in the world? You can't do anything to change that, but you can change how you perceive it. You can change how you internalize it. And so I just choose not to internalize it. I choose to tune it out and to live my life with what it is that I can control. And, that is a very challenging thing, especially going through COVID. I mean, for me as a newscaster, it's all I was talking about day in and day out. But if you don't tune in the news for a week, then you don't know about, the spikes or this or hospitalization rates or that. Is it going to alter your life in any way by knowing every little minuscule detail? No. But what it's going to do is it's going to guard your heart and protect your mind. And so I think that's the most important thing that we can do for ourselves. So when I look at fear, I first of all look at what am I taking in? And if I'm taking in information and things that create that fear response, then it's up to me to stop taking all of that in. Stop allowing imagined fear to dominate my life. And then what areas can I control? For instance, I talk about fear in terms of making a change, that sort of leap off the high dive when you may have an opportunity or something may present itself and you're scared and you're doubting yourself and you're questioning, can I do it? Am I capable? Am I able? Am I going to fail? That's the kind of fear that I believe we need to conquer and we need to overcome. And you have to take that leap off the high dive if something is speaking to you and calling you, because my feeling is, what's the worst thing that can happen? You can jump and it doesn't work out and you fail, and there's a life lesson in that. But at least you can say you jumped, you tried, you experienced it, and you learned. The worst feeling for me is sitting back and not acting on it. And then all you have is a constant replay of what if, what if, what if. So I think certain fears have to be attacked and seen and dealt with head on. And then the other type of fears, like you were talking about, Safiya, sort of what's going on, the world around us and all of that, limit the intake so that it's not all consuming.
That's really, really good advice. I've actually had to, I found myself getting hooked on my phone, constantly having to scroll constantly. Do you have any advice for people who find themselves, especially if you use your phone a lot?
Yes.
Are there practical things that we can do?
You bet. Limit notifications. Turn off notifications. If you subscribe to 5 different news outlets, turn them off so that every time something's happening, you're not getting this notification that's interrupting you in the middle of your day. Get some apps and things that are prayer-based apps or meditation apps that encourage you to carve out 5 or 10 minutes of your time to center yourself, to breathe, to list your gratitudes. I mean, what a wonderful way to completely shift your mindset and shift your world from a place of fear, worry, and doubt into, I have something to be grateful for. And we all do. Everybody can be grateful for something. But what is it that we're choosing to focus on? What we magnify is what grows, right? So am I going to magnify my problems, or am I going to magnify my God and my blessings? And it's just a shift. So do some practical things to limit whatever it is that's distracting you and chewing away at your peace and joy, and add some things that will actually bring you more peace and joy so that you can go through this world a happier person.
Yeah. I grew up in a family where you weren't allowed to go on electronics too much. We only had the TV, and there wasn't much to watch on TV, right?
Right.
And so working in media was the thrill of my life. That's all I ever wanted to do. But it's become so toxic that for the first time, I crave the real world. I go outside and I just see how wonderful people are. And I forget it. I forget it when I'm online. I just think, have we all gone crazy? But maybe there's something in the virtual space that makes us lose our minds.
Yes. It is designed to get you in and keep you trapped in a system of constant consumption of media, of spending, consumerism. It's consumption and it's control. And I feel that you can break that cycle by severing that tie. And I know it's quite ironic listening to a former journalist of 28 years telling you to sever the consumption, or at least limit it, because I don't want to get caught up in that cycle. It's not a happy cycle. It's not a peace cycle. And it's not a place of progress. And I'm with you. I feel better when I step outside and I walk in the grass and I feel the sunshine on my back and I listen to the birds sing. God gives us beauty and art and music in the form of nature. And we're meant to be out in it, to enjoy it and experience it. It's grounding, and it's so important for us to feel centered. And yet we are farther and farther away from that. And COVID especially made it exceptionally difficult to be able to get out and experience that. And I think people are craving it now more than ever. And that's a sense of connection to each other and a sense of connection to nature.
How did you get through lockdown? I know you were making content and you were still working, but what was lockdown for you? How was it?
Lockdown was kind of a mixed blessing in a way for me, only because I was still able to go to work. So I wasn't trapped in my home. I mean, I left every day. I operated per usual. I was still able to interact with my colleagues as a journalist. So I didn't have that isolation that a lot of people experienced. But what it did do for me was it shut down parts of my life where I was overextending and overcommitting, too many events, too many areas where I was emceeing programs and attending this and overbooking my calendar. So all of that social stuff came to a standstill. And what it really allowed me to do was have more balance in my life with the children who were, schooling from home at the time. And then when I had to go to work. So it in effect allowed me to center a little bit better. And I enjoyed that balance so much that I promised myself when life returned to normal, I would never again put myself in that place where I was too busy for me. just too busy to take care of myself and not practice self-care that I talk so much about in the book.
You say in your book that embracing our outward beauty is a good first step to living our internal boldness and increase our confidence and renew our joy. A lot of people feel like women, who focus on their external appearance are shallow. Can you, put this to rest?
Yes, I will gladly put it to rest. First of all, that's allowing another person's opinion to cast judgment over you. So that's a belief system that I don't subscribe to. Number two, beauty has always been coveted throughout the ages. Even the Egyptians were buried with their makeup in pouches in their tombs because it was so important to them. So to sit there and say that beauty isn't important or relevant is really denying a huge part of who we are. We are visually driven people. Look at how beauty is coveted throughout various cultures. So I'm not sitting here saying that you are only beauty and you should only focus on the outside. But what I love about the outside in approach is that when I talk about making over your life, sure, we all know that true beauty originates and lies within, but a lot of that internal work takes time. To make big changes, lasting changes, takes an enormous amount of thought, dedication, sustainability, and a lot of people just simply burn out and then they feel like they have failed themselves. And that puts you really in a place that's not great. In fact, probably worse than where you started before. What I like to do is focus on something that you can do. I call it like a pistol shot at a track meet. What can you do that can instantly make you feel better about yourself, that can show you that you are, in fact, capable of taking some bold risks in certain areas of your life? And those are easy areas to tackle first. So we talk about maybe hair change. Let's say you've had the same hairstyle for many, many years and you've been afraid to change, maybe because of you think you won't like it, or you think your spouse won't like it, or maybe words were spoken over you as a child that traumatized you to do something with your hair, but you've been wanting to do it. Overcoming that fear and making that change and then seeing yourself differently in the mirror after you've done that is a huge confidence boosting step. And so you start there and you think, okay, well, look at me. I pulled the trigger on this and I made the change and it wasn't as scary as I thought it would be. So now maybe I'll tackle a new makeup look to go with this hairstyle of mine. So you start playing around with makeup and you do things differently. And then suddenly the woman looking back at you, the reflection, is looking more confident, is looking like she's investing in herself. She's smiling back at herself for the first time in a long time. So now she starts to tackle other areas. Maybe the wardrobe isn't as reflective of the new woman that she's becoming. So she makes changes there. And then the roots start to go a little deeper. It's like, well, if I'm doing all of this work, why is my life so unorganized? Maybe I need to better organize my life. Maybe my space needs to be tidier. Maybe I'm not so happy with my work and what I'm doing. Maybe it's time to make a change there. So what all of that does, in my opinion, is that it starts to set you up for success because you've taken some baby steps when it comes to bold risk-taking in your life. You've seen the difference that it can make, and now you want to let those roots go deeper and you want to start making over some big areas of your life. And so that's why I sort of adopted the beauty from the outside in model, because it's effective, it's quick, and it's highly impactful.
Oh, I absolutely loved your message. And just seeing, I think we get the message that, you hit your 40s, you're now 40 something, maybe it's time to not prioritize your life and only worry about caring, and only give into your caring role. And it was so refreshing to see you say the opposite.
Yeah. And it's a hard time for women when you think about it, because in this midlife range, which is, mid 40s through mid 60s, you're really at truly a midpoint in your life, because first of all, you're going through menopause. Physically, you're going through an enormous amount of change, and sometimes you feel as if your body is just completely sabotaging you. And thankfully, the conversation about menopause is really opening up, and I'm so grateful for that, because it's a dialogue that needs to be had. Women need to know that there are options out there. It's not one size fits all, and it's not one formula fits all throughout. Change, your body changes, but you know what? Seek help if you're struggling and if you're not feeling good, because there is help out there. But two, women are at this point, they've raised children and they're about to become empty nesters, which means now the focus becomes on the marriage and the quality and the health of that marriage. And oftentimes there's, a lot of realization about that relationship, because it's now starting to get a hard look and prioritization. And some women realize that they're not so happy with where they are in that marriage, and maybe it's salvageable, maybe it's not. This generation is also now caring for aging and elderly parents. So you are caretakers in every way. And what's happened is we've stopped taking care of ourselves because we are so depleted. We're caring for everything and everybody except for us. And it's like that old expression, you have to put the oxygen mask on first before you put it on someone else. You can't be good to anybody unless you're good to you. And so when you're in this phase of your life where there is so much going out, all I'm saying is you're important. You are worthy of time invested, and you need to fill your cup. You need to fill your gas tank so that you can hit the gas pedal and go. And self-care is not selfish. And I can't say that enough.
Oh, it needs to be said enough, honestly. I think that is a message that a lot of women need to hear. It's so easy. I mean, we do that even with our careers, A lot of women struggle to assert themselves at work, to ask for the pay that they deserve. And it's just, we do need to have better conversations. Is there any career advice in your book?
Yes, I do talk. I was very hungry. I worked hard. I worked relentlessly. I always asked for constructive criticism from superiors and from colleagues. I would critique myself. I find that the younger generation is far too passive and not engaged enough in the workplace. And so my encouragement would be and I think it's because they've been raised on these, and this has been the form of communication and not face-to-face and eye-to-eye. And so there's a real disconnect there. And I just can't encourage young people enough to really make the effort. And I know it feels awkward, but to approach people in your workplace, people you admire, people who are superiors, your boss, and say, I'm excited to be here. I want to learn. I want to grow. Please, I welcome any kind of feedback or constructive criticism. If you're asked to do something extra, say yes. Don't come in and say, yeah, I want to work here, but oh, by the way, I need 2 weeks off in June because I've got a wedding and I can't, everybody's coming in with a list of what they can't do. And what I'm saying is show an employer what you can do. Yeah. Show them that you're going to go above, and do more and contribute more and be that standout, be that hungry person who's willing to gut it a little bit and to suffer a little bit. And that's where the sacrifice really pays off, because in the beginning, everybody's kind of level, but what separates everybody is the one with the work ethic, right? Because everybody's going to grow in terms of skill set, but it's the work ethic that's really going to differentiate how you're going to rise in your profession.
That is such an honest and refreshing message. And I think we're the same generation, so I definitely take that. But I do find that, again, this could be just an online thing, where as soon as somebody suggests that, hard work is involved, everyone, you see, people criticizing them, and you just think, well, that is the truth,
Yes. It is the truth. It's the reality. It's called work, not play. It's work. And so you have to work and be willing to do so.
Yeah. there's no other thing that you can say to someone, you know, if you want to get ahead and if you want to have a longevity in your career, there is no other thing to do. Look at you, you are working full time and creating content and writing a book,
right,
while being a parent.
Right.
So how do you balance all that?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I don't know. You'd have to ask my son that. Somehow, miraculously, it all got done. I've got my dog here. If you see,
I know, I saw him coming in.
His little nose right here. He wants attention. It's, you know, it was just, again, long hours. Getting up in the morning and writing before I had to get ready for work, writing on the weekends, you know, being present at home, being present for my job. Sometimes I was shooting videos on the weekends. I mean, it's just, the calendar gets full and the days get long. But when you're doing what you love and you're passion driven, then you've got the energy for it. And so, and that's the other thing that I really want to tell young people. Don't do a job, do something you love. If you're passionate about it, if you love it, you're going to be willing to spend the time, effort, and energy to do it well and do it right.
That's definitely true. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, you share a lot of your life, you know, your painful mistakes, all of your imperfections, and I appreciate it so much. You know, you're so relatable. But how do you deal with the fact that you're putting yourself out there and you're leaving yourself vulnerable to people who aren't very nice?
Sure. You know, I would say that I've already been exposed to the not very nice, even by not being vulnerable. And so for me, I think in this space, and especially the space that I created on YouTube, it was really important to be open and honest and transparent, because only then can you have real dialogue about things. If you're guarded and you don't share, then you don't help, or your help and assistance is very limited. And I've always been a bit of an open book. And sure, there's potential consequence that comes from that. I mean, I was very open about my family, open about becoming a blended family, took viewers along on trips and vlogs, and, you know, viewers got to meet my family. And so, you know, when everything sort of fell apart and I was just trying to figure out, how do I handle that? And there's just no hiding. You know, you can't hide. On one video, you're in one location, and then the next few videos, you're in another location. And then suddenly you used to see people and now you don't see people. I mean, you have to address it. If you're going to be open about the good times, you have to be open about the bad times. And I think, you know, I mentioned that word grace earlier in our conversation. And I think handling the downtimes and the upsets and the hiccups and the bumps with grace allows you to get through and allows you to feel good about yourself in the moment. And so, you know, I recorded a video, and it was a very personal video about what I was going through in my life, because viewers were sensing that there was a big change and they felt like I hadn't fully addressed it. And I thought, all right, you know, I need to address it, but how am I going to address it? And I think there's a fine line of being transparent, but also still protecting and guarding people's privacy. And that includes mine. And I figured I'm going to tell the story as best as I can without giving too much detail. You know, we live in a society where everybody loves a scandal. Everybody loves dirt. And that's not a gracious or classy way to handle anything. It's not right. And it's not fair. So my feeling is, yes, I'll share with you what I'm going through, but up to a point. And you have to understand and respect that I deserve that privacy. And the audience was so understanding. And I don't know, I felt in a way like I just got a big hug. And everybody just said, I feel you, I understand you, I've been there, I'm going through that, you know, we get it. Thank you for sharing. I could tell something was off. I appreciate you, your brain. So I think it's how we choose to handle things. We can be open and transparent. And trust me, Safiya, there are always going to be the haters. There are always going to be the people who will just not be on your side, in your corner, or, saying nice things about you. And I've never understood why they're there. It's like, if you don't like somebody, why do you follow them? It's really a strange phenomenon, but I think they just do it because it's again, jealousy and insecurity, or just trying to get under people's skin. And so there will always be those people, and I most certainly can't make decisions or conduct myself in a way that puts them in my brain space as to how I'm going to act and what I'm going to decide to do and say, right? That can't factor into the equation.
I think it's easy to ignore haters that are just online. You're never going to see them. Yeah. You don't really know why they're there. And, they're just the trolls that you expect if you're going to have any form of public life, right?
Sure.
But I think the harder thing is people that you actually know, who you know, who take digs at you.
Yes.
And yeah, that's actually more painful. How do you deal with those types of people?
It's tough. I mean, I think you have to be honest and transparent, especially if it's somebody that you know. And if they reach out in that sort of a way, and it happened to me, and I just had to deal with that person directly. And, my line is, as a journalist, there are always two sides to every story. And you can't cast judgment, hate, criticism, or unleash unless you fully know both sides to every story. And, if you're not willing to listen or know or understand, then I am not deserving of that kind of comment or statement. So, be classy, be respectful, and back off. It's not fair.
Yeah.
So, it's a shame that you have to do that. But I, again, choose to handle myself with grace in those situations. I mean, there are times you just want to unleash on somebody because it feels good. But then in the end, you don't feel good about yourself, about how you conducted yourself in that moment. So again, you say, I'm going to take the high road here. And so I can be at peace with that.
Yeah. You always have the option of walking away and just kind of ghosting the person and thinking, you know what? Yeah, I don't want to deal with what you're bringing me all the time.
That's right.
You say that that you focusing on your outward appearance made you a happier and healthier version of yourself, emotionally, spiritually, and physically. What do you do to keep in physical shape? Because you honestly, for all the stress that you've gone through, you look not even close to someone in their 50s. You look amazing.
Oh, bless your heart. You're so sweet. It's funny. There are several things that I do to take care of myself in that way. So first and foremost, to me, sleep is the best way to look young, vibrant, and healthy. Getting enough rest, and our bodies are independent and unique. So I may need 8 to 9 hours to feel great. You may need 7 to 8. We're all different, but I think honoring that internal clock of what it is that we need to feel rested. You wake up looking better. Your skin looks good. You don't have bags or you don't have circles under your eyes. So sleep is everything. Our body regenerates when we sleep. It's our healing times. So that to me is the most important thing. Physically, I've transition. I used to work out in a gym all the time with weights. I've had trainers through the years, and I don't know, I was just getting tired of the system of it. And I was also dealing with chronic pain up in my neck and my shoulders from certain movements that I was doing. And so I was talking with a colleague of mine at the station who also worked out in the same gym. And he said that he had started going to a yoga class, a hot yoga, and was doing vinyasa flow on occasion. And he said, you might want to try it out. And I wrote about it in the book. And it really was a transformative experience for me in terms of the type of a workout that I got. But I also loved the peace, calm, and quiet that I had on my mat. I was in a room full of people, and yet at the same time, I felt very isolated and by myself, which I loved. There was that quiet, and then the lying still in Shavasana at the end. It was just the perfect compilation of everything that my body was asking for. And I listened to it and it honored me. So that has really been a big game changer for me. And then I've always watched what I've eaten. I don't believe in dieting at all, but I believe in eating healthy. And I think our bodies also tell us what foods are good for us, what reacts well in our system. So lots of produce for me, a lot of lean protein, water. I'll have a glass of wine at night. But that's it. And it's the balance, the working balance, all of those things consistently are the things that keep you healthy.
Yeah. No, I saw one of your videos where you talked about what you eat in a day, and that was so inspiring, actually.
Oh,
But you eat pretty consistently the same.
I do.
Yeah.
I'm very predictable.
Did you build that in the gym during your gym years? You built the nutritional side.
Yeah, I really learned in the gym. I would work out with people who were competitive bodybuilders. So I would watch them get ready for shows, and I could see what they were eating, and I could see the transformation in their bodies, and it was very regimented, very measured, portion control, very limited. But again, it was just the right amount of lean protein, a complex carbohydrate, vegetables. And a trainer once told me, diet is 90% of how you look.
Wow. Nice.
So true. It is so true. You can go to the gym, you could work out, you could sweat, you could run, you could do everything. But if you're not eating properly, you're not going to look the way you want to look. Diet is 90% of the equation. And I thought, wow. I mean, that's not to say don't work out and do those physical things. We need that. We need that to be healthy. We need that to reduce cortisol levels, to reduce stress. But I'm just talking about a physical component. I didn't quite realize how much that factored in.
That's so true. I find that I can stay on top of everything if I'm also taking care of myself. But I find I'm an emotional eater. Yes. And so if I'm not looking after myself, I will reach for all the things that I shouldn't be reaching for.
Yeah, all of the starches, the sugars, they're all serotonin releasing foods in our brain. They're the feel-good foods. And the tragedy is that it's a great high, but then it's also a very, very sharp low afterward. And then the emotional beating up that we do. Why did I do that? Why? I should have known better. Why did I allow myself to go there? So, food should never be a mind game. Food should never be a battle. Food should always be seen as a form of enhancing and sustaining life.
No, that's true. You just hear diabetes is on the rise, high blood pressure, and all these things, So it's definitely your message of women looking after themselves and their health is couldn't come at a better time, as we need to shed bad habits that we've all accumulated in this time.
And COVID did not help either, by the way.
No. Let's talk beauty trends.
Sure.
There's a beauty trend that has emerged out of the pandemic, which is women are choosing to go gray. What do you think about that?
I think it's amazing. I have seen some friends of mine do that transition and do it so beautifully. And I'm envious. I don't have enough gray hair. I'm naturally kind of a dark brunette, and I've got just a few gray stragglers at the hairline. So it would not look great. But there are women with this glorious silver or salt and pepper hair, and they just let it all come in. And I think it's magnificent. Why? It's a personal choice, and it's not to judge or to say one is right or one is wrong. But I find it fascinating because women didn't have access to the hair salon. They were just stuck with roots and letting it all come in. And many of them just said, you know what? I never would have thought to have seen what this might look like, but since I'm forced to, let's go for it. And so a lot of them would let their hair grow into a certain amount and then cut it into maybe a pixie or something short so they could full on see. And they surprised themselves. They were thinking, my goodness, this actually looks really good. And I loved seeing that transition. To me, that's a bold move to make. I think that, with ageism, women have been so hesitant to let gray hair come in for feeling that they would look outdated or too old or, not useful or, maybe be judged or lose a job or who knows what. And what a horrible thing to say that, it's okay for men to go gray early, that's distinguished. But for a woman to go gray early, well, now she's older.
Yeah.
So I think as a society, we really need to be careful with these labels.
Mm. I recently interviewed an Italian fashion designer who I met in 2019, and she was saying that in fashion, a lot of designers are waiting for that moment because they feel like there's all this pent up energy and they can't wait to create feathers and just really bold outfits.
Yes.
Do you feel that sense in beauty that we're all going to really express ourselves differently now going forward because we've been all, locked up and fearful?
You know what I see, Safiya, I actually see a really broad range in beauty, which I love. So here in Houston, things are really open. I mean, everything is like normal. I mean, there are events going on, charity events, galas, and whatnot. And so everybody's dressed to the nines with, colorful clothing, full on makeup. I mean, the way it used to be.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, there's also been this shift that COVID brought, which is more of this athleisure look, the sort of yoga pants, a little bit more relaxed and casual, and women wanting to have some makeup on their face to feel like they have good skin, glowing skin. So the sort of natural makeup look or the no makeup look has really come into light. So that's been interesting. It's about good skin. It's about sort of a dewy foundation, a little bit of a bronzer or a lip stain or a lip gloss and mascara, and that's about it. And so I find that the pendulum has really kind of swung in both directions, and all of it is acceptable, is in, and is celebrated. So that I think is a really cool thing.
That's so interesting you say that, because I think maybe because in Texas you haven't had the same type of lockdown that other places did. What's happened, I feel, here is people really want to dress up because they haven't had the chance to dress up for a long time. I go to the suit makers and people that didn't have a lot of business except from the finance sector or the businessman. They're saying that just general everyday people now want to wear suits and dress up.
For us, it happened earlier. Texas opened up much sooner than even the rest of the country. And so when that happened, I remember all of my lady friends, they were just so excited to put on the red lipstick and do the hair and get dressed up and go out to a restaurant. It's like, I'm free, I'm me, so you're right. It's this big celebration of getting back to normal and what that feels like. And that again speaks to the power of beauty, right?
Yeah. What are you looking forward to in your life now?
Oh my gosh, a vacation.
With the book release, it's been exhausting, right?
It's been a lot. It's really, really been a lot lately. Just a lot of personal change, life change, launching a book. It's wonderful, but it's so much work. And so I'm ready for a little pause and to take a break and to then get ready for the next. And I don't know what that's going to be yet. I love how life sort of unfolds. One thing leads to another. And so I keep my eyes open, my spirit eyes open to see what's going to come next for me. Will something come to me, or will an idea come where I'll cultivate it? I don't know, but I'm so eager and curious to find out.
Oh, I'm so excited to follow you. You said there's going to be a new video soon. If you can if you find the time, I'm so happy that we have you every week, and I will continue to follow you. I could talk to you forever, but I know you won't be there.
Well, you're an absolute delight, and I'm thrilled that you reached out to me, and I've really, really cherished our time together. And I just want to quickly give a shout out to all my peeps in London and England. I've had so much support from your community, and so many people have purchased the book already. And so I just want to offer a huge heartfelt thank you and just an expression of gratitude for your love and encouragement, because it means the world to me.
I can't wait to meet you in person.
Me too. Me too. I feel like we're kindred spirits.